So we've had a spirited discussion, was it yesterday, with Dr. Don Brash about he and other prominent New Zealanders basically support for China, suggesting that we shouldn't cozy up to our traditional Western allies because China does a lot of business with them and Don works for a Chinese bank. And I did say I thought that many New Zealanders would just, if you were going to toss a coin in the air, say, let's hope that comes down on the side of functional democracies that believe in the fundamental precepts of freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of religion, which would appear to me, given that the Chinese Communist Party, it's a one-party state in China, they're not really so into that. So maybe if we're going to pick sides, we don't go with the totalitarian state. And Don basically said that was just such old thinking on my part, and the Chinese aren't as bad as all that. Well, aren't they? It seems often we hear stories about the Chinese attitude to freedom and to democracy and to open public debate, indeed freedom of speech. They will try and affect that in other countries. And indeed, there is a case in point happening right now where it would seem to me the dark shadow of the totalitarian Chinese state is coming to New Zealand. To talk more about this story, to talk us through it, we're joined by Nick Hahn from the Free Speech Union, the champions of free speech in New Zealand, and he's going to give us the yarn. Nick, good morning. Nice to see you again.
Morning, Sean. Yeah, good to be with you.
All right. This involves a New Zealand journalist of Chinese ethnicity. What's her name and what was she trying to do?
Yeah, so Portia Mao is her name, and she came here around 25 years ago. She's from China originally, but she left and came to New Zealand because she wanted to be able to live in a democracy. She believes in free speech, and I think events like the Tiananmen Square massacre had a profound impact on her, like many Chinese dissidents and others who've left China. And so she's worked as a journalist for much of the last 25 years in New Zealand, and has worked on some pretty high-profile stories. She worked on the Stuff investigation last year called The Long Game, which has gone in depth into basically the very tangled web that a lot of politicians and business people in New Zealand have found themselves in, where the Chinese government, the CCP, have been trying to influence and interfere effectively in New Zealand politics.
We had that national MP, didn't we, who basically run the spy school in Beijing and ended up being a national MP and then disappeared, kind of. That was weird.
Yeah, Jan Jiang, if I'm saying his name right. He was actually my politics professor at uni. I used to get into debates with him about China's sort of future and what I thought was going to happen and what he thought was going to happen. And of course, he was from there and was claimed to be more of an expert. So fair enough. But I always had my doubts about what was going on here in terms of that viewpoint.
So back to Portia. So she's been working in New Zealand as a journalist, enjoying the freedoms of living in a democracy like New Zealand. How did the CCP get to her here, or what's happening? Or what happened?
So what's happened is that Portia, as part of this investigation last year that Stuff were doing, she was involved in doing a lot of the research. Her name was on the credits, and so she has been targeted, it seems, as a result of this work that she's done exposing Chinese government influence in New Zealand, especially in our politics here. And she has found that because there's a large Chinese community in East Auckland, this is where the complainant is from, and he is somebody who's been involved in local politics in East Auckland.
Has he been an elected local body representative or a councillor?
Has been a candidate, not been elected, but he's been a candidate. And that's
are we allowed to say who he is, by the way, Nick?
Yeah, I mean,
why the hell not, eh?
Morgan Zhao.
Morgan
is his name.
Zhao.
Morgan Zhao.
Zhao.
Yeah, it's Xiao.
Yeah,
I think that's how you spell it. And so look, he's the complainant. It's out there. It's been.
And what did Portia say about him?
Well, basically, Portia and Mr. Zhao got into an exchange online on a Chinese chat forum. And in it, he was accusing her of, working for the Americans and being a shill, for the Americans. And she was accused. Sorry, she accused him of being a shill for the Chinese government. Now, in that exchange, they basically called each other, and this is the term they used, running dog in English. In Chinese, it sort of has the connotations like of a lap dog, somebody
Right.
who goes around doing their master's bidding. And so because of that, Mr. Zhao has cried bully and has gone to the district court in Manukau in South Auckland, and has used the Harmful Digital Communications Act to basically get Miss Mao silenced. So the HDCA is a very problematic bit of legislation. It's been around for 10 years, but
Okay, but hang on. So how has the court gagged her?
Well, so last year, unbeknownst to her, this court order, this interim order, was issued by a district court judge in Manukau, and it basically prevented her from saying anything at all about this person who made the complaint. So this guy, Mr. Zhao. And what's happened is that she can't report on him. She can't talk about him. If she does so, she risks a massive fine, potentially up to 6 months in prison if she violates the order. And anyone that tries to get her story out there, like Stuff or any other kind of newsroom or news network, they would be subject to, I think, a $20,000 fine.
Oh, am I going to get a $20,000 fine for today?
Well, let's see. This is still.
Well, let's give it a crack, shall we? In the interest of free speech.
I knew you'd be up for that sort of challenge.
Oh, look, I'd be up for that. I'm sure we could crowdsource that. No one told me. The district court didn't send me a thing saying I couldn't talk about Morgan Zhao. I do need to ask, though, that sounds like an expensive and convoluted thing for Mr. Zhao to go through. Was he supported by Internet Safe or Net Safe and all those people, or did he just do this off his own bat?
Well, I'm not sure that this has cost him much at all. He represented himself in the district court. But what I need to emphasise here is that this original interim order where Portia Mao was silenced, this was not known to her. She was not aware that this action had been taken.
Oh, so it was like tried in absentia.
Yeah, that's right. Until the order had been issued, and this guy who had made the complaint was crowing about it online and waving around.
Has this ever been done before this way? These laws? What act is it? What is it? The Crimes Act? Or?
No, the HDCA, the Harmful Digital Communications Act. It was originally passed into law because there was concerns in 2015 that, of course, we didn't have enough safeguards in place online for our young people, being exposed to all kinds of, malicious and sort of nasty stuff. Now, noble intentions, but unfortunately, it was very poorly drafted. It was really a terrible piece of law in terms of how it was composed, and it's allowed people, cynical adults, people who have a political agenda, and potentially they're doing the bidding.
Well, that's where I wanted to come from. I may have oversold this story. Do we have any evidence that Morgan Zhao and what he's done has been supported or backed by the Chinese government?
Well, look, let me put it this way. He's been very closely associated with the Labour Party, which not in itself is a crime, of course. But they have now distanced themselves from him, realizing that he has been very consistently beating the drum for the CCP. And the difficulty is that the CCP, as you pointed out in your earlier segment, is an authoritarian regime. And there is a very deliberate effort around the world through something called the United Front, or the Little Pinks, as they're known, people who are pushing this agenda for the CCP. Now, we have to be careful and say we're not the ones here who have presented the evidence, substantive argument about Zhao's involvement. But there are very good investigative reports now that have been done by groups like Stuff. And I want to point out that Stuff have had another journalist, another person working for them in that very same investigation, who has also been targeted by Mr. Zhao through, I believe, through similar. His name's Justin Wong. And I can't go into any detail because we're not representing him, but we're not supporting him at this stage.
Hey, tell us what you know. It's a free country.